Here we go. So I want to show you two more ways to measure and check your work. And then we'll take a quick break. Okay, so in your ribbon, Home tab, far right, in the utilities, you have measurement tools. So the quick measurement, if you click on it, you can move it around and it will measure things for you. It can be a little bit unpredictable. So, some cases it works great, others maybe not so much. But these other ones work phenomenal. Okay, so for distance, okay, using your object snaps, if you want to check the width or the length of a line, you snap to point A, you snap to point B, and it will give you all of that information in the command line down below. So you can see that distance is 3 feet. Okay. If we had a box or a room, okay, we could go from point A to point B. We go across diagonally, and doing that, we get both the X length, the Y length, okay? So you can actually dimension rooms width and height really quickly if you ever want to do that, if you ever have to do that. Okay, the other tools kind of do exactly what they say they will. So we have radius, there should be 3 feet, okay? We have angle. So if we go and we find two lines, we pick line A, line B, and the angle between them is 65.04 degrees. Okay, and the area does the same thing. If you use your object snaps, you can snap around the outside of a shape and you can find the area, right? And it'll give you that information here. Okay, so we have the properties palette, we have the measurement tools. The last one that we have, which I don't use as much these days, but can still be valuable, is the list command. So if we select an object, okay, from the properties palette, there's a command called list. Okay, or you could just type in L-I-S-T, list. You pick your object and hit enter, and AutoCAD will pull up a window that gives you information about it. Okay, so we have properties palette, we have the measurement commands, and we have list. So all three of those can be used in the assignment today to check your work and make sure that what you're drawing is accurate to the information that you are provided with. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing this screen. Okay, and we'll take a break for a few minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, maybe at the most. Let's say we come back at 8:15. And then I want to show you the assignment, and I want to give you a little bit of a rundown on how to approach it and set it up. Okay, so 8:15, we will come back, and then we will continue on with the assignment, and then we will have some lab time where you can ask me questions if you want and share some of your work, whether it's from last week or this week. Okay, so 8:15. Okay, so the assignment for this week is to follow these setup instructions. And what you're going to do is you will make sure that in that new drawing, okay, you're using the precision and the settings that are recommended that you see on page 2. And the shapes that you will be drawing for this assignment are found in the symbol library page. Okay, so sometimes it can be helpful to print this off and have it right beside you. Okay, that way you have it for reference. You can look at the radius, you can look at the dimensions. There's a lot of really useful information that you can use when you create these shapes. And the assignment for this week, if you read it carefully, okay, is to draw the symbols accurately as shown on the symbol library handout. So that's the shapes only. You do not have to do the hatching. You do not have to do the dimensioning or the text or anything else. All you have to do is draw the shapes. Okay. So what I would like to do with you is to set this up. Okay, I want to walk you through it. You don't have to follow along. You could just watch if you want to. But what I would like to do is set this up for you. And then I would like to draw a couple of these shapes for you. Okay, and talk a little bit about how we can approach this and how we can try to make sure that you get started off on the right foot. Okay, so if we look back at the assignment, okay, I'm going to write a couple of notes down here for myself so I don't have to flip back and forth too much. Okay, we're going to set it up. The units are going to be architectural. The precision will be 1/32. Okay, measurement, LT scale, and MS LT scale. We'll set this up accordingly, how it's shown here. Okay, so measurement will be 0. LT scale is always, not always, I shouldn't say always 0.5. And MS LT scale is going to be 1. Okay. And after that, the last little note here is to set up some limits. So for these limits, you know, you don't have to do it, but I find that if you spend a little bit of time and give yourself a little bit of a 8.5 by 11 sandbox, it can help you keep these symbols tidy. It can help you keep them organized, because really the size of the paper that we have here, this is 8.5 by 11 inches. So if we create limits that mimic this page, that will allow us to organize our symbols in a similar fashion. And that can be really useful to yourselves as participants in this class, because eventually you will have to use this for your term project. So if you create some limits that represent this piece of paper, okay, I'll walk you through that, then down the road, you know, it would be very, very useful to you to have that organized. Okay, because when you copy and paste these into your term project, then everything will be where you expect it to be. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to AutoCAD. Okay, sorry, I'm going to switch over to AutoCAD here. There we go. Okay, and we're going to go through. So the first step is to start a new drawing. Okay, so we go to New. Okay, so in the Quick Access menu, that's the blank page on the left side. In the Program menu, the big red A for Awesome. No, it's for AutoCAD. Okay, we have New up here as well. Or on your keyboard, if you hold down the Control key and hit the letter N, okay, the Select Template dialog will show up. So the template that we want to start with is AutoCAD. Okay, this is our generic template that we use. Okay, next week, your assignment for creating your own template will be handed out to you. Okay, so we'll start working on that, but for now, we'll still rely on AutoCAD. Once we've selected it, we can hit Open. and we have a blank model space. Okay, we have a blank space to work with. So according to our instructions, we should set up our units. Okay, so the alias for units is just UN. Okay, if you don't remember that alias, you can also find units in the program menu under drawing utilities. It's also available here for you. So you have different ways of getting here. The length type will be architectural, and the precision, according to the handout, will be 1/32. How precise does our decimal degrees have to be? We can go to 2 decimal places. Okay. So one thing about this is that if you ever get this wrong or you're unsure, make your best guess. If you have to, you can always go back later and change that precision. If you don't get it right, you can go and alter how precise you want AutoCAD to be later on. Really, in the big picture, this precision only affects what AutoCAD reports to you. As far as your drawing, you are in charge of that. Whatever you input, whether it is to a 64th or a 32nd or a 16th, that's what AutoCAD will draw. The precision that we see in our units affects only what AutoCAD reports to you. Okay, so you can always go back and change this. And we'll look at some examples of how that reporting can be affected in a couple of weeks. Okay, for now, don't worry too much about it. Okay. After we've set up our units, we have to set up measurement, line type scale, and model space line type scale. So measurement, okay, the command is just the word measurement. Measurement is a toggle. You have the options of 0 or 1. Okay, 0 tells AutoCAD that we are working within an imperial system. The number 1, if we were to switch this to 1, tells AutoCAD that we are working in metric or a decimal system. Okay, so I can see in brackets that AutoCAD previously was set to use 0. If I want to be safe, I could input 0 again and hit enter. Again, we can come back later and fix this. Okay, so if it's not quite right, don't stress. You won't have to start from the beginning. Okay, next we have line type scale. Okay, this is something that we have not talked about yet, but that we will cover next week. So for now, you have to work on a little bit of faith. Okay, have faith in it. So line type scale, we hit enter. The line type scale that we use for our class would be 0.5 or 0.5, both the same value. And we hit enter. And then the last thing we're going to set up is model space line type scale. So the command for this option is MSLT scale. MSLT scale. And what this does is this helps AutoCAD communicate with the annotative system. So it's not something that you would have to think about on a daily basis. And it's not something that a lot of people even think about on a yearly basis. Okay, but it is an option. And because we're working with AutoCAD out of the box, we want to make sure that we set this up and that we have the desirable results. Okay, so we can set it to MSLT scale as the command, and the value is 1. Once we've set those variables up, once we've set the units up, we can do our limits quickly, and then we will save our document, right? We're going to save it so that we have that blank slate, and we're starting to generate something which I want to show you in a few minutes. Okay, so limits is our next step. You can see how good my typing is here. Limits. The bottom left corner of our 8.5 by 11 can be 0, 0, 0, comma 0 for our x and y values. And then the top right corner, if we're talking about an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper in the portrait mode, okay, the x value would be 8.5, comma 11. Okay, those numbers represent the width and the height of that paper space, of that paper that we want. Once we hit enter, we've created those limits and we can't see them. So if you remember from last week, the reason why we can't see them is because AutoCAD is currently displaying the grid everywhere. And what we need to do is change it so that AutoCAD only shows the grid inside the limits. The way that we do that is if you go down to the bottom, okay, we have our grid button, which toggles the grid on and off. And if you go to the right, there's an arrow. And when we click that arrow, we have access to the snap settings. So if you click on these snap settings, in the bottom right-hand corner, there is a box. And if we uncheck this option, display grid beyond limits, effectively what it does is it tells AutoCAD to only show the grid inside the limits. So if we uncheck it and hit OK, we will then be able to see our paper or the limits representing our paper. So once you get to this point, we can save it. Okay, Control and the letter S, or you can go to the quick access to the save, or you can go to the program menu, whatever works best for you. Okay, I'm going to go to my desktop. And the name for this assignment is my last name dash symbol library. I'm making that up. I actually can't remember what it's called, but if you check your assignment, it will tell you there as well. As long as I know what it is when you hand it in, everything will be fine. I promise. Okay. And there we go. So once I've set up the units, I've set up the variables, I've set up the limits, and I've saved it. At this point, I'm ready to start drafting. Okay, so now I can go through these symbols and I can start to use the different commands that we looked at today. Arc, circle, ellipse, and polygon. I can look at how I can use these commands and the object snaps that we've talked about to create all these different shapes. Okay, so if we start out in a simple way, okay, I'm going to look at the library here. Okay, in the top left corner, I have my grid lines. Okay, so these are grid line markers. Okay, they refer to a numeric and alpha value, okay, alphabet value to different grid lines, so that when we go on site, when we talk about different parts of the building, we can refer to a specific location so that we're all on the same page. So these symbols themselves, in their most basic form, we really have a circle and another circle, right? We can keep it simple. Remember, you don't have to do the text, the dimensioning, or the hatching. We're only drawing shapes. Okay? So the radius for these circles is 1/4 inch for each. Oh, stop. It doesn't like it when I switch from the PDF back to AutoCAD. That's why I have to stop and then go manually. There we go. Are we back? No? Hang on one moment. Let me sort this out. Kind of a pain. I don't know why it does that, but it doesn't like it for some reason when you go to the PDFs. I have to share my PDF. I'm going to stop sharing the PDF. I'm going to move to AutoCAD. And it just pauses it for some reason. Okay, just give me 1 minute to sort this out. I'm not sure why it does this. Okay, so, you know, starting with those, now I got chat. Now I'm worried I'm missing chat. Hang on 1 second. Let me switch this over. All good, all good. I know. I stress out because you want things to work right. When I use something, I expect it always to work. Okay, so starting off really basically, like those grid and bay reference symbols, they're just circles, right? So, when we think of what we're doing for the assignment today, all we really need to do is use that circle command. And they don't have to be in the exact same locations, but in general, I have one here, okay? The radius is a 1/4 inch, so I can write 1/4 and hit enter. Then I have another one down below. So let's start with the circle command, 1/4 and enter. And this is all it needs to be. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. Okay. Another thing that you could do, because we have some symbols that are repetitive, we have some symbols that look the same as others or similar, you could start to look at some of the modification commands. So we do have the move command, rotate, and copy, right? And same thing goes for the modification commands as how we work with the drawing palette. The commands like line, circle, ellipse, polygon. It's really important to follow the command line. So when we start the move command, okay, it will ask us to select the objects. So if I want to move the top circle here, I select my object and I hit enter to advance to the next step. Right? If I hit enter, it will ask me to specify a base point. So the base point is similar to if I put my finger down, where would I put my finger down to move the circle to a new location? So the base point in AutoCAD could be on the object. It could also be off of the object. But wherever you click, that object will become bound to that cursor. So now it's bound to the cursor. They become connected. And now I can move it to a new location. And when I click again, AutoCAD will drop it. Okay? And if you're in the middle of the command and you get a little bit lost, you can always hit escape and start again. Okay? So copy is similar. Okay, copy which object? So I pick my object and hit enter. I pick my base point. Okay, so this time I will select a little bit off to the side here. And now whenever I click, AutoCAD will drop a copy. So you can create copies as well. If I didn't do something quite right, I can select and delete them, or in this case, I can just undo. Okay. The next symbol down below is our grid, or no, sorry, not our grid and bay reference. It's our elevation reference. Okay. So that symbol consists of 3 different shapes. It's a cross, oriented in a horizontal position, and a circle. Okay. The radius of that circle, okay, is 1/16. Okay, it's 1/16. And the cross itself, okay, it extends past the circle 1/16. So when we draw these shapes, we're going to have to practice something a little bit new, but it's something that we have a little bit of time to get used to, okay? So I would start by drawing the circle, okay? The radius for this is 1/16 of an inch. So we do 1/16 and we hit enter. Okay, you see it's quite small. So we can use our wheel and we can zoom in on it a little bit to make sure that it's big enough that we can draft with it. Now, the next symbol, the next part of this symbol, okay, is a cross, which sits something like this, right? But we want to do it accurately. So we can't eyeball it. But what we do know is that from the center of this circle, that vertical line starts 1/16 outside of the circle. We have a dimension for that. Okay? So I know that from the center, 1/16 up, sorry, 1/8 up is the start of that line. You can see that with my AutoCAD, okay, we have these object snaps displaying themselves. So there's the center point of the circle, where the green circle is on my screen that we see. If I hover, okay, so there's no clicking involved. You don't have to click. If I hover over top of that center point, AutoCAD should place a marker. And now you can see that green marker. Okay. When AutoCAD places those markers, it will track away from them. So that tracking ability is this button that we see down below here. Okay, so we have our object snaps, and then beside it, we have our object snap tracking. So any object snap that you have currently active, okay, I can turn on a few more if I want to. Any object snap that we currently have active, AutoCAD will track them. And it can be really, really useful. So if I place my marker in the middle, I can track upwards a specific distance. And the way that I do that is I move upwards away from my green plus sign, and I type in how far I want AutoCAD to jump. So the line starts 1/16 outside the circle. I know that the radius is 1/16, and then the line starts 1/16 up. So 1/16 plus 1/16 is 1/8. So I want to track up, and I want AutoCAD to jump and start that line 1/8 from the center. Okay, and it does take practice. Okay, and then I know that down to the center is 1/8, and then I need another 1/8 to go to the other side to finish that single stroke. So 1/8 to the center plus 1/8 to the other end would be 1/4. And that is the simplest shape you can draw to get that vertical line. So is the process itself simple? Maybe not, right? So if you had to, you could start your line in the middle and you could go up 1/16 and you get to the circle. We can go up another 16 and get to the top. And then we could start another line and we could go down and accomplish the same thing. On screen, it will look the same. Is it as efficient? Not really. You end up with a whole bunch of extra shapes. But for what we know at this point in the class, this would be fine. Okay, this is perfectly acceptable. Okay, so to show you one more time, okay, we'll do the vertical and the horizontal. If we start our line command, okay, we have to have the proper object snaps turned on and our object snap tracking. If I hover in the middle, I can mark the center point, and then I can tell AutoCAD, I can track upwards, and I want to jump 1/8 the stroke down, 1/8 to the center plus 1/8 to the other end will be 1/4. And we hit stop. Okay, now we just have one line to manage. We can track from the center point again out to the left. From the center outwards, we want to jump 1/8. And how long is this line? We don't know. So looking at our screen, we will just judge a suitable distance. You don't want it too short. We don't want it too long, but you can pick something reasonable. Okay. The next symbol down below is very similar again. Instead of trying to draw this on a 45-degree angle, which would be more complex, I am going to use copy and pick these three shapes, pick my base point and move this down, click. And then I will use a new command called rotate. So rotate will allow me to take these shapes and rotate them around a central pivot. So the base point for rotate is like putting a tack in a piece of paper. Wherever you put that tack is where it will rotate. So if I pick the end, AutoCAD is going to rotate around the end. If I pick the center, AutoCAD will rotate around the center. So picking the proper point is important. How many degrees difference is it between the flat and the desired location? If you look on the handout, the angle that we want is 45 degrees. If you get these specific numbers, I would always recommend using the keyboard to input them into the command line. So I type in 45 and I hit enter. Okay. So using basic steps, sometimes doing a little bit of a sketch to try to figure out how things should look can be really, really useful. But using what we've learned today, okay, you should be able to work your way through and draw the symbol library that you received in the PDF. Remember, you do not have to do the text and dimensions. You only have to draw the shapes. Okay, so when you finish, you should have just line work. Okay, I wonder if I have an example. Let me see if I can find an example quickly. Okay, so this is what we're looking for. Okay, except for this one. This should be, I'm cheating. You don't have to do this, okay? Just like this. So just the shapes, no hatching, no text, no dimensions, okay? That's not necessary. Okay, I'm just gonna come back to the chart. And this is due week 5. So you have a couple of weeks to work on it. So what I would like to do is I'd like to have you work your way through the assignment, and then next week there's a couple more symbols that I will draw for you that are a little bit tougher. So if you get stuck, just move on to the next part, okay? Don't feel like you're rushed, okay? Oh, I cut out my back. Yeah, week 5, do week 5, the same as the course outline says. Okay, so work through them, give them a shot. If you get stuck, just move on to the next symbol. And then next week we will add, we're gonna add layers, and we're gonna add a few more things to it. And then we will have a time to review things. Okay.